Okay. So we're going to be talking about Aspen administration today. And so this is really geared as a refresher to people that have been doing Aspen administration, but there are a few people signed up that have not done it yet. So this is going to be a lot of information to absorb today, but like most things, anytime first time you're seeing something, it's usually overwhelming. But I promise that once you get familiar with clicking into things, it's usually pretty straightforward. So does anyone want to volunteer, like what their experience working with Aspen has been so far? And if not, I'm happy to talk about my experience working with Aspen before we jump in.
I'll talk. I don't. It's we set it up initially, and it's been
Mhm.
running well. We set it up so that we could have folks can look at our hours and our programs and things like that from the search feature from the search page, and I check it to make sure nothing's happened to it, but I haven't updated it in a long time.
Okay. Okay, yeah. And Jackie says they're new to it and they have no experience with it. Okay, so um, this is great. This is good. It's going to be a little bit of both experiences. So before I jump in and I start sharing my screen, Aspen Discovery or just Aspen, it's the discovery layer used for the OPAC, and the OPAC stands for Online Public Access Catalog, also referred to as the Patron Catalog. It's linked to Evergreen, which is the staff client that we use. But it's basically so the patrons can browse our collection, they can place holds, they can create lists. And it's also a really helpful tool for staff to have as well. One of the really cool things about Aspen Discovery is that every library in the Westchester library system has their own instance of it. That means they have their own branded version. And as an Aspen administrator, you can customize your catalog to match your library's branding. You can feature your own collections. And you can communicate with your patrons with system messages or placards and do promotion for your programs or events. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like and how to do that. So before I go forward, I just want to talk about some general housekeeping. I cannot see your screens while I am sharing my screen. So if you have a question, you need me to pause or repeat anything, if you have access to a microphone, you can unmute yourself or drop it into the chat. I do get the chat notifications and I will be pausing periodically to talk about that. There's also going to be time towards the end to ask general questions as well. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen. All right. So we are looking at the Westchester Library System instance of the catalog. So WLS has its own instance, and this is linked to our website. And when patrons search Westchester Library System in Google or whatever browser, this is the catalog that pops up for them. Now, everyone's instance of the catalog is pretty much going to follow the same layout, but the branding is going to be different depending on what you as an administrator done or your library's administrator has done. Not every library, though, has signed up to have an administrator for it. And there's reasons for that. And it's okay what those reasons are. Not everybody has the manpower or the time to take on an extra task like this. So for those libraries, I have been managing their instance of the catalog. So when we are looking at the catalog, I'm going to scroll down a little bit just to kind of show you and name certain features because I'm going to be referencing them throughout this training. We are at the home screen of the catalog, and so every instance is going to have a little house icon that will take patrons back to this home screen. Here they have their search menu. This is called the search bar or the search menu bar. And right above this, you see I have these menu tabs. This is called our top menu, and these are completely customizable. So you can see from the WLS catalog, I have a link to the library directory. So if a patron comes here first, but they want to browse within their home library's catalog, they can open this up and they can choose, I'm going to use Largemont for this example. They can start browsing the Largemont catalog. Every catalog instance, though, does have that directory available to them, but it's tucked in their hamburger menu. These three vertical lines are lovingly referred to as the hamburger menu, and these are also customizable except for the your account, Aspen admin, library homepage, and then library hours and location. Those links cannot be customized, but some of them can be removed, and I'll show you how to do that later. Moving down, we have these tiles. These tiles are called your browse categories, and these are also customizable. And they can be created by a saved search or creating a list. These browse categories, this is what propagates all of these book cover titles. All right. When we're logged in to Aspen with our admin login, we're going to log in like patrons would. We're going to click on that little person icon. And then once we're logged in, we're going to have access to the Aspen admin menu. Now, this is what your menu is going to look like. My menu, which we're going to be switching to in a few minutes or a few seconds, this is going to be a little bit more broader, but I want you to kind of get if you haven't seen this before, I want you to kind of get a feeling of what you would be working with. One of the nice features about working with Aspen is that you can always search for a specific setting. So if you don't remember what the actual menu header is, but you want to, let's say, work on if you want to create a system message, if you just start typing it, it's going to bring you directly to that menu. And this search bar is going to be available to you no matter what page you are working with on the admin side of things. And to clear that, I'm just going to click that little X menu. So little tour of the menus available to us is we have our Aspen Discovery support. So this link to the Help Center is going to take you to all of the documentation and help guides for working within Aspen. And if you haven't yet done it and you are an Aspen administrator, I do recommend bookmarking it just because this is such a helpful resource to have. It's broken down by category. But just like our Aspen admin menu, you can search specifically for what you're looking for. You're also going to have menus for dashboards. So you'll see Hoopla, Cloud Library. If I scroll down, Open Archives, Overdrive Libby, Sideloads. These are our dashboards. And so these can show us the metrics of how Aspen is getting used. So if I scroll down, let's just say to the,
Allison, do you mind if I interrupt you for just 1 second?
sure.
Because I just want to mirror what you're doing, because if I do it physically, then I'll have the muscle memory.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
but I'm struggling on the very first instance of the Chappaqua Aspen instance, the catalog, because it doesn't have the admin URL that I'm seeing there.
So
So
you're signed in with your admin login
so I
credentials.
have the admin login credentials. I feel like I don't have the correct URL because if I go to I'm so sorry to do this, whoever I'm interrupting, who probably knows what you're doing already. So when I go, okay, maybe I was just being a complete moron.
No,
Uh,
no, don't say that. Don't say that.
Because
Uh,
I was expecting to see when you showed the hamburger menu that there was an administrator version, but I think if I don't log in, then I won't see the administrator version.
That's
That
yes.
that
So
is what I was being really stupid
okay.
about. I'm sorry, guys.
No, 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 no. Amy, that's for anyone that's new to this, that's good clarification that you do need to be logged in with your admin login in order to see that menu link
Okay,
right
so we're
there.
we're all set. I'm good. I'm logged in. Thank
Okay.
you. Sorry.
Yeah. No, no, you're good. Because if you were to log in, like let's say, like if you were to try to log in with your Evergreen username, you're not going to get in. If you were to try to log in with your actual, if you have a personal library card, you're not going to have access to that. So you do need a specific login. And if you don't have it, I will create that for you. Okay. So I want to show you what the dashboard looks like because this is really helpful and I think it's really interesting to take a glance at. So as I mentioned, there are multiple dashboards available in Aspen and they're going to be broken now into like specific categories or topics. But the ILS integration is going to give you an overview of how your patrons are using Aspen. So it's taking a couple of seconds to load, but once it does, the default view is going to show you all of the Aspen instances. So that's why if you first see this number, you're going to be like, whoa, that's huge. But if you open up this dropdown, you're going to select your library's catalog URL. Now, some libraries have customized their catalog URL. And so if you're not sure what your URL is, go to either just take a look when you open up your catalog. If you don't have it bookmarked, go through our member libraries directory link and look at what your URL is here. So for example, I know, Steve, because you logged in first, we're going to use Portchester. So we have portchester.aspendiscovery.org, but did you guys customize? Do you have a customized
Ours is
URL?
catalog. It's ours is
Okay.
catalog.chappaqua.library.org.
Okay. And then I just want to see. Okay. All right.
I saw it on the list.
I know. I'm gonna use Portchester first, and then we'll use Chappaqua. Okay. So selecting Portchester, I get a sense of the number of user logins, and I get to see what was the number for this month, last month, this year, and then all time. As I scroll down, I can see how many people are placing holds, the records, the total amount of holds. And then as I scroll down, there are certain things that don't necessarily apply, but I can also click on this little tiny graph icon here. And this is going to open up in a different display. So I can also kind of see the movement of how my patrons are accessing. And then I also get a month by month breakdown here.
Would
Now,
I ever need this for the state reporting, or is that you guys are already putting that somewhere for me, so I never need to look at this for that, right?
Allison Midgley, I believe, has been taking care of this.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, anytime I'm opening up a page, my admin menu is going to be available to me on the left side of my screen. So I can use my breadcrumbs, which are these links here, to go back to administration home, or I can always open up those menus. I want to take a look at a different dashboard to also show you what else we can see. So this is the system reports usage dashboard. And so again, we're seeing everyone, all of the library. So that's why we're in the millions for the number of page views. But if I were to go to catalog.chappaqua to see how Chappaqua is doing, so far for February, there's been 89,000 and change page views. So page views by authenticated users means how many people were logged in with their library card while they were looking at these pages. Because if I were to go back to my home icon, basically anytime I open or click on anything, that's considered a page view. So it's kind of telling me how many times people are looking and clicking on things within the catalog. Now, going back to that usage dashboard, going into Chappaqua, just to show you what else we can see. This is going to show me how many bot activity I have. So at one point we had 500,000 bots looking at Aspen, but since Bywater, who hosts Aspen Discovery, they've implemented certain security software, and that has significantly decreased bot activity. And so you can get to see like all of the numbers here, and I think that's really helpful and cool to see from time to time. Back in our admin menu, so we have dashboards for Hoopla. I mentioned that. Our local catalog enrichment, this is where we can manage those browse categories that we've created. We can also create something called a collection spotlight. And a collection spotlight is essentially a carousel of book covers that can be embedded into our website or a newsletter. And the idea is that patrons click on whatever's in that carousel, and then it takes them directly to the catalog where they can place holds. Placards are I like to call them little advertisement tiles, and these can be created to pop up in your search results. Essentially, what we do when we create them, and I'm going to show you how to do that, is we come up with trigger words and we get into the brains of the patrons and think about what are they searching in the catalog so that my program or my whatever I'm trying to get their eyes on will pop up in the search results. And it's a cool way to get patron engagement because we can link registration forms or our calendar or websites to it, depending on what we're promoting. System messages are another way to communicate with our patrons, and it's a little bit more visible than a placard. System messages are banners that pop up at the top of our screen, and we can also designate specific pages within the Aspen catalog for where they show up. Theme and layout, this is where the customization of the look of your catalog is going to come into play. So specifically themes, this is where you're going to define the colors or the branding to match your website or your library, the fonts, and the way the book covers are displayed. Primary configuration, this is also where we're going to set up things like our close dates or our hours of operations. So first things first, I'm actually going to start in the primary configuration menu, but I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to switch my user because this is just for testing. And I just wanted you guys to see a menu that matched what you see when you're first logged in. So excuse me one moment while I sign out and sign back in. Okay, so when you first log in with your username, it's going to take you right into the account just like you would as a patron, but you'll also have a link to your Aspen admin menu there as well. Okay, so I'm going to use my search bar to take me straight to primary configuration, and I'm going to go into library systems first. Whenever you open any menu within Aspen, other than those dashboards, you're going to see your library listed here, and you're going to see a number ID or a library ID. And then if you use your navigation bar, you're going to see an edit button. For you guys, you're only going to see your library. For me, I get to see all of you guys because you guys are my babies when it comes to Aspen. So I'm going to go to the WLS. And like I said, I can click on that number ID, that library ID, or the edit button. And it's going to take me into library systems. So there's some information about your catalog here. So your base URL, your display name, and as you scroll down, there are additional menu tabs here. So to show you basic display, this is going to give you theme options here. So every library has their basic theme, which is going to be the theme that defaults to when you first do a search for your catalog. But patrons also have the option to switch to dark mode or high contrast white, and they can do so in that languages and display button in the top right corner. You can remove these if you want, or you can create your own and add them. You can also create header or footer text. So for example, each library has, footer text just explaining, what Westchester Library System is. But if you don't want it and you want to remove it and replace it with something else, you can do it in this field as well. Scrolling down to contact links, this is where our social media links are going to be added. So some libraries do have their social media accounts linked here, and this is what allows patrons to share their library searches to their social media accounts here. Most libraries have at least one or two in here. Usually libraries have a Facebook or an Instagram. You can always remove them if you don't want them available. Okay. Now scrolling down, I want to go all the way down to my holidays. Now, this is a lot of scrolling to do. So instead, I'm going to show you a much quicker and easier way, and I'm going to use my arrow button to bring me to the top of the page. So remember when I said that there's search bars available in almost every screen that you're working with? If I wanted to input my close dates or my holiday closures into Aspen, all I have to do is type holidays, and it's going to pull that up directly for me. So just like Evergreen, we do have a page to input our close dates. However, the difference between our Evergreen close dates and our Aspen close dates is this is in Aspen, the only place that a holiday closure is going to be displayed to patrons is when they are in their accounts and they're looking to see if they can go to the library to pick up their holds. Yeah. So to show you what I mean by that.
Yeah, I know that on July 31st.
Oops,
July 31st, yeah.
Oops, I think I need to mute someone.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So if I were to log into the catalog and to see if any of my holds were available, where this says Westchester Library System is open today, instead this would say this library is closed in observance of Arbor Day, President's Day, what have you. This is the only place that displays. There are libraries that have added menu links to pages that also include their holiday closures. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, I will show you how to do that when we get there. To input your holiday closures, you're just going to click Add New. And you can either type in your date or you can open up the calendar. And we just had President's Day. So I'm going to say President's Day. I'm going to save my changes. And save changes and return is going to take me out completely. But if I had clicked Save Changes and stayed, it would have kept me within here. I also want to bring your attention to the documentation link here. So this documentation link is going to open up the Aspen Help Center in a new tab, and it's going to open up the page specifically pertaining to what I was working in. So if I have questions about library systems, like all of the things that can be done in the library systems page, this is going to give me a breakdown of that. I also want to talk about the history button here. So this history button is going to give me a snapshot of all of the things that have been worked on in the past 90 days, because there is no undo button within Aspen. So you can use Control Z on your keyboard with certain things, but primarily there really is no way to undo anything. So I do want you guys to be mindful of the changes that you're making, but should you ever do make something that you're unhappy with, you can always take a look at your history log and kind of try and figure out where things went wrong. Okay, return to list will also take me back out of here. So I'm scrolling down because there is another thing that I want to talk about, and I think this is not the most important, but this is a pretty significant feature of our catalog, and it's where we create our menu links. So library systems, whenever you guys are working, you're primarily going to input your holiday closures and your menu links in this page. So to create your menu links, you can always click Add New, and as you go here, you're going to see your existing menu links. And as a reminder, our menu links appear in the top menu or in our hamburger menu. So scrolling back down, when we're creating our menu links, there's going to be a category field and a link text field. These will typically match each other. As you can see, our member libraries, those match each other, but you will sometimes see that they don't. And because the category is really the container for the link, because there may be instances where you have a stacked menu. For example, on the WS catalog, we have a help and FAQ menu. And in that stack, we have information about the app. We have catalog help guides. We have FAQ pages. We have digital resource help. And so what that looks like is when I hover or click on my help and FAQ, I have those additional links underneath that category. I did. I'm skipping over the icon because that's typically the last step that I recommend doing. And I'm going to use my navigation bar to move over. So after you determine the category and the link text, so the category, again, that's pretty much a container if it has multiple links stacked to it, but if not, it's going to match that link text. The URL, you're going to input whatever URL you are linking to in this field. And then as you navigate to the right, this is where you're going to designate where these links show up. So show in top menu and show icon in top menu. I do recommend turning both of those on if you want them to appear above the search bar. Show expanded applies to those stacked links. So show expanded, if I turn this on, this is automatically going to make my stacked links visible. And so an example of that in my hamburger, under my member libraries category, I have my links. So I have a repeat of that directory. I have the library area service viewer linked here. I have information on how patrons can get library cards, and then I have information about ILLs. And so all of those are expanded and visible. Whereas in my help and FAQ, I have to open that to see them. Okay. Boop, boop, boop. I keep moving past you. You can also determine whether or not you want your links to open in a new tab or not. And then published is what makes them visible. So you can create menu links and then leave them unpublished. So you can just have them locked and loaded. And then when you're ready to have them visible, you can turn on published. There's also an option to only have links visible when patrons are logged into the catalog as well. Okay. And then once you have your bones of your foundation set up, then I do recommend choosing your icon for the menu link. Now, when you do that, you're going to click on this little blue circle with a white eye in the middle, and it's going to open up fontawesome.com in a new tab. There's almost 8,000 icons to choose from, so you can search for them. If you scroll down, there's plenty to choose from, and they're broken down into category. I also created a cheat sheet for you. So I basically thought of, what are the common links that libraries are adding to their catalogs? And then I kind of found, icons that fit. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but it does help because it can be overwhelming choosing. So for example, if I wanted to create a link to my calendar, my library's calendar, I could just search calendar in this field. And then I have 11 icons to choose from. When I find one I like, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to ignore everything in this section to the right here. I do not need to know anything about it. Instead, I'm going to go to the name of the icon and I'm going to either click on it when I hover over, it says copy icon name, or I can click on my little copy icon URL. And then when I go back, I'm just going to paste it in here. I could also type it in here, but I do want to make sure that if there's any hyphens in the name of it, that I am including those. Once I'm finished, I click save, and then it's going to typically bring me to the top of the screen. When we're planning our menu links, I also want you guys to be mindful of the available real estate between your home icon and your sign in button here. So think about, what do you want to be the most visible to your patrons? Maybe that should be in your top menu. I also want you to think about the phrasing. Is there any way that maybe you can condense phrasing? Can you use ampersands instead of the word end? Because it can look pretty cluttered. And if you do have too many menu links, it will create rows too. So think about the most visible that you want, add them to the top, and then everything else you can always add to your hamburger menu here. So I'm going to pause for questions. I do see some things in the chat feature, and I just want to make sure that we are, okay. All right, Jonathan, what do you mean catalog.eastchesterlibrary.org isn't on that
Oh,
list?
when we were looking before and you were scrolling down through the different
Oh, the
URLs that were there,
dashboards?
yeah, the dashboard,
Okay.
it didn't list catalog.eastchesterlibrary.org, but we do have that as a URL.
Okay. That's gonna bother me. Let's go to pause for this brief interruption. Catalog.eastchester Library. You are in there.
Oh, it is. Oh, you know what? Because I
Yeah.
saw Eastchester.Aspen Discovery down there. That's why.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So this is, yeah, because this is going to include the original URLs,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
then, but it's also going to include the current URLs. So that's why I say you want to be mindful of what your actual URL is when you're choosing from that drop
Gotcha.
down.
And
Okay.
also, while we're talking, I actually just went. So the four items on the menu at the top there, are they supposed to appear on the mobile instance of it?
So they typically, it depends on the sizing of
Okay.
it. So your if your link text is too long, only the icons will be visible.
Oh, okay. Because I just looked and okay.
Yeah.
So because
And so that's why I do recommend making sure that you do have icons included with your menu links. And then you also have that option to turn on the visibility
oh
of them.
wow. Oh, because when I look at it now on the mobile and all that I see is the house.
Yes. And
So
that could be because if you were to go into your menu link, come on, guys, menu links. If you were to go and scroll over, I would be curious to see if you had show icon and top menu turned on for
okay.
all, because it includes all screen sizes.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So
So
I'll have to put, but you're saying, but there is a way that I could make it, and I mean, assuming that it's not too much content, that I there it is possible to make it so that it shows up on the mobile instance too.
yes, but keep in mind, like, because I know for ours, at least for WLS, the link text does not show up. It's only our icons. And so
I understand what you're saying. Okay,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's a possibility if there is a small enough amount of link text that it would show up.
Yeah, but I would be curious to see like what that limit actually is.
Okay, okay. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Where is your icon cheat sheet? So, Amy, that's an excellent question, and I will show you where all of the Aspen cheat sheets are. But right now, I'll just tell you that they are available on the IT wiki. And then towards the end, I will show you exactly where to find them on the wiki.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to use my breadcrumbs to go back to actually, I'm going to use my return to list to take us out of here. And then I still am going to be in primary configuration. So just as a reminder, we were just in library systems, and that's where we add or edit our existing menu links, and we update our holiday closures, our social media links, and then any header or footer text. I'm moving down to our locations link. And so locations link, just like library systems and anywhere else, you're going to choose your library ID or click on that edit box. For me, I'm going to scroll all the way down until I find WLS. And I click on that one more time. And then locations is primarily where we're going to create or set, not create, set our hours of operation. But this is also where the information that propagates our map is. So as I scroll down, I just kind of want to show you our display name, Westchester Library System Office. I have use library themes turned on. If you have a library that has branches attached to it, in the locations page, there is a location for each library location. So you can determine who is the main branch. If you don't want your locations and hours listed in the catalog, I do not recommend turning this off, but you can. And so you would just deselect and click save. And why is it showing the Ardsley? That's weird. Oh, I know, because I turned off Ardsley is linked to my admin account. But so for example, North Salem is temporarily closed right now for maintenance. So I had turned off the show locations and hours for them. I'm turning that back on. Yeah, okay. Now it's back to WLS. Good, 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 good. Sorry for that little confusion there. Okay. As I scroll down, this is where my address is, our phone number. You can put a secondary phone number. So if you have a main number, but maybe you also want patrons to have the reference number. If your library has an email address that you want patrons to reach out to with questions, you can include that here. And then you have your latitude and longitude, because that is what creates the little map when you click on library hours and location here. And that's also the phone number, call library, visit library. If you had an email address, there would also be a button to email. Close. Okay. Scrolling down, the description text box. So if you wanted to include information in that library hours and locations link, this is where you could do that. So you could include information like, I'm going to use Mount Pleasant as an example. So Mount Pleasant is our main library, but come visit us at the Valhalla branch. You can include that there. You can also include if you have I know we're still in the dead of winter, but one day it will be summer again. So, don't forget to check our summer hours and all of that. So you can really get creative if you wanted to include a description as well.
So I see that we can't schedule hours, so I can't turn off Sunday's hours once the school district ends. Now I have to do it. I have
No,
to
you can't.
delete it
Well,
when that
let's
time comes, maybe.
hold that thought, Amy. Just hold
Okay.
that thought. Yeah. Okay. Basic display. So basic display, this is also where you could add header text. So there are some libraries that have included their library hours in the header text. So when patrons open up the catalog, their hours are displayed right next to their logo. And that's a creative way to also showcase that. And in your menus, some of the stuff you're seeing on my screen, you will not see in yours. So if you're familiar with looking at the location screen and you're like, wait a minute, I don't have that stuff, don't worry, you're not supposed to. It's okay. But I'm scrolling down and I'm probably skipped it because I skip it all the time. I'm looking for hours, library hours. So this is where we're going to set those hours. So if Chappaqua is closed on Sundays, all you need to do is just turn on closed. You don't have to actually set the hour in there. You could just turn that on. Or if and then if come when the school year starts and you're open again on Sundays, you just deselect that and that will leave you as open. But you do want to make sure that you click and add your opening hour and your closing hour. When we first got Aspen, we had to enter the time in military time. And so I had created a military time conversion cheat sheet for everyone as well. And I'm happy to say, since our last update with Aspen, that is no longer the case. So if you do need to adjust your hours for seasonal reasons or what have you, all you need to do is just click into that field. You can type it, or you can click on that little clock icon and you can choose. You can also leave a note that will display next to the days of the week. So if your children's room has different hours, you can input that there. Okay, questions about setting your hours. Amy, did that help?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes, because
awesome.
I would have deleted it instead of hitting. I mean,
Yeah,
I can't schedule it, but let's hope someone
y-
remembers. And
yeah,
let's hope that,
there's no reason that to delete it when you can just turn it off. And whenever like we come into the season changes, usually we do send out like information like don't forget to update your hours in Evergreen or Aspen, because typically Lindsay and I are the ones that need to do that in Evergreen, but you have the control to do this in Aspen. Okay. So I'm just going to use my little arrow to navigate back up to the top of the screen. And I'm leaving primary configuration unless there are any questions. Hold on. Okay. Jonathan says he's been putting holiday closures in as a system message. That is an excellent use of system messages because, as I've stated, the holiday closures only appear when patrons are looking to see if their holds are available to get picked up. And unless you're creating a specific page that lists your library's holiday closures, using a system message is an excellent way to communicate library closures to patrons because you can also have that display in the Aspen Lita app as well. Um, yeah, and Jonathan says they're easy to schedule. And Amy, I will show you system messages, but that is something that you can schedule ahead of time too.
okay.
All right. I'm going to move into our theme and layout menu because I want to talk about themes. So themes is where we're going to do a lot of the customization. Usually, well, when I say we're going to do a lot of the customization, for most of you guys, you won't actually need to worry too much about this unless your library goes through a rebranding. There have been two catalogs that have already gone through a rebranding, and that's Peekskill, the Field Library, and Katona. They have recently, last year, they had a beautiful rebranding, and so I've worked with them to get their catalog to get updated to that. Okay, so again, we're going to go down to WLS. Westchester Library System. All right, and as I scroll down, as you'll see, I'm going to say that a lot as I scroll down. You can choose to make header and footer full width. So I have that turned on. I have it turned off for the WS catalog. And if I go click, what that means is there is spacing from the edge, the physical edge of my screen, and then to the edge of my menu. If you turn that off, your catalog will take up the full screen. So it's your call. The nice thing or the cool thing about being an Aspen administrator is you have full control on what you want to do with your catalog instance. So if you just want to leave it as is, that is totally fine. If you don't want to create menu links, if you don't want to add system messages or placards or fiddle with any of the color themes, you do not have to. But if you do, the power is yours. So your logos are going to be listed here. So all images that are uploaded into Aspen, they're either going to be in a JPEG or JPEG or PNG format. So most of I will say, if you do need to update your logo, check to see if that little lock icon is locked. Because if you were to try to update it, if that is locked, it will not take. So if you can unlock it just by clicking on it. So if I needed to update the Westchester Library System logo, what I would do is I would select remove and then I would save, and it's going to refresh and it's going to delete this. And then to replace it, I'm going to click select image and it's going to open up my file chooser so I can upload the image. And it will tell you the sizing parameters to keep in mind. You can also update your favicon. Your favicon is the little icon in your bookmarks or your tabs. So every library has their own favicon as well. Your color image style, so there are two choices for you. There's border and picture frame or shadow and floating. So currently we have, what do I have? I have border picture frame selected as my book covers. But the other option for that is shadow or floating. And if I click save, boop, 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 That's taking a little bit longer. That's okay. Let's, if I do a refresh, let's see if that does anything. Okay. Oh, that didn't take because it's still uploading. We'll come back to that. Ah. Okay. You
Got
can
it.
see that border isn't there anymore and there is a slight shadow. So it really could, it just comes, it's a matter of preference. Okay. And now we're in the colors portion of the theme. So I'm just going to do a quick scroll just to show you all of the possible colors to edit in your instance. They're everywhere. The nice thing though is you have that documentation link available to you, and it's going to also give you a breakdown of what to keep in mind and what all of these things and how these themes show up. When you want to update any of the colors, you can do so either by copying and pasting the hex code of that color, or you can just click into that field and choose it. So this is the page background color. I have it set to white, but if something came over me and I lost my mind and I wanted to change it to dark crimson, well, technically I could. I'm not going to click save because that's crazy. I'm going to do that for my body text color. So I have that set to black, but again, if something were to come over me and I wanted my to be the lightest of pink, my body text color, my contrast ratio plummets and then it's highlighted in red because evergreen is constant. I mean, not evergreen, excuse me. Aspen is constantly telling me whether or not this is going to be visibly accessible to my patrons. And so if it's in red, it's not a good contrast ratio. It is not going to be easily visible to my patrons. So I want to keep my numbers at least in the green. Also, if I were to try it, if I were going to save this and be like, I don't care, it will not let me. It will stop me from trying to move forward. So I cannot have a grossly inaccessible contrast ratio there. Also, in your browse categories, this is also where you can determine how your tiles appear. So as I scroll up, these are your browse category tiles, and you can also update those here. All of these collapsible menus are able to be customized. The only thing you're really not going to see is format category icons because we're all using the same format categories, meaning when a patron does a search, that icon for book versus movie versus audiobook, all of those are the same across the board. That's not a good example. Moving on. Are there any questions about the theme or updating the theme of your catalog? Now, at any point, if you're ever stuck or you're ever unsure of what to do, you can always ask for help. This is very much a part of my job description, and I already manage other libraries' catalog instances and make updates as they request them. So if you ever need help with anything, you can always ask.
I do have a question.
Go for it.
I have someone who does the Aspen administration, and she's on vacation for 3 weeks, which is why I decided that I should maybe learn how to do it so there's a backup. So apologize, she's doing a lot of this for me. This new fiction, new nonfiction, is that automatically pulled from Evergreen?
We're going to do
Sorry,
that
I
right
keep
now,
jumping
actually.
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're in tune. That's what that is. So Amy is asking, where do our browse categories come from? So our browse categories are created two different ways, and you do have to be an Aspen administrator in order to do them. So, before you create your browse categories, I want you to think about, well, what collection are you showcasing? Because if you want something to be updated automatically, then you're going to want to create your browse category through a search. So think about, Amy, give me an example of something you would want to showcase a collection. It could be just a keyword, a subject, whatever.
Well, it could be like if you're going to do Black History Month,
Okay,
that would
perfect.
be one that has to be maintained through a challenging search, right?
Well, you could start by just doing Black history. You get search results. And so you could do keyword. I'm going to do it by subject. And then I'm going to see what Aspen gives me. Now, keep in mind, I'm in the main Westchester Library System catalog. You guys, when you're working within your instances, you're going to have a second tab here, and it's going to be the right of entire collection, and it's going to say Chappaqua or Portchester or Eastchester or Mount Pleasant. So you can narrow it down to what your library owns in this collection. So we have 623 items in these search results. So that's not a bad start, but maybe I want to get a little bit more specific. So I'm going to open up my facets, another word for filters, on the left side of my screen. So I can select a format. So if I only want books to be showcased in my browse categories, I can turn that on. It does take a second for it to update, so you do have to be a little bit patient for it. And then you can also lock it down. So meaning that because this is a search and these are going to get updated on their own, I want to make sure that only my book formats are included when these get updated automatically. I'm also going to go down to fiction versus nonfiction. And this is where I'm going to choose, do I want this to, which category I want this to be. So I want this to be nonfiction. Again, I'm going to lock that down. And then I can also determine my audience. So you can choose general, adult, juvenile, young adult, or special. I'm going to make this as general. And so that brings me from 600-ish to about 390. And just these are all just examples. So as you go through here, you can also further limit this. So you can get very specific with the browse category you're showcasing, or as you can see, if you look at your libraries or even WLS's, you can, like I said, you can get very specific with creating subcategories, or you can get very broad with it too. It depends on just how you want it to look and what you want displayed. I also, before I'm finished creating and adding my filters, I like to look at my added in the last filter, because especially if you want to create a browse category, we have the coming soon that's available to every library. And this is how we determine what gets added to the coming soon. Instead of, there's an on order option there. And so that's what's selected for those coming soon to get propagated in there. Now, if I were to actually narrow it this down to like what is added in the last, you can see, you know, I'm going to go from almost 400 items to 8 items. So I'm actually just going to leave this be because I want more than 8 items in my browse categories. But depending on what it is, this could be a good additional filter to add to keep things a little bit more current, especially as we want things to get added and added and added as they're added into the catalog. I also can arrange how my search results are listed and how they eventually get displayed in my browse categories by opening up my sort by menu. It will default to best match, but I can also do a date purchase descending. So it's going to pull up my more recent ones to the top. I can also do pub year descending or ascending. I can do it alphabetical. I could do total checkout. So if I want to do what's really popular right now, I could do that. User rating. So what has the highest user rating versus the lowest, or by number of holds. So like what has the most holds, what's really popular right now. I'm going to leave it at date purchase descending because that's usually what I do for my browse categories. Then I'm going to go over to my search tools dropdown. And as I open that up, I'm going to go to add to browse. Before I click on that, I want to bring your attention to create spotlight, because just like browse categories, we can create spotlights from our searches. So I'm going to click add to browse, and I have the option to update an existing browse category, or I can create a new one. So I'm going to call this one Black History Month. And then if this was going to be a subcategory, meaning that it was one of these specific, I would have to choose a parent for it to live under. But I don't want this to be a subcategory. I want it to be its own. And then I'm going to turn on display on homepage and click create category. And it will tell me if it was successful or not. One of the ways, if you ever get an unsuccessful message, it could be because there's a category in your catalog that already has the same name. So I would just, go back to the drawing board. And so let's do a quick little refresh. I just saw you. I just saw you. There you are. And here's my new browse category. Also, your browse categories, next to that little magnifying glass is actually the link to those search results too. So you can click on them and then you can see and view, and you can see them displayed that way as well. Now, the second way to create a browse category is through a saved list. So when you are adding items to a list, you have the add to list button right there. And so I have a couple of lists available. This is how I create the New York Times browse categories is I go to the New York Times website, I pull the ISBNs and I add them into my list. And it's very tedious, and I have a calendar reminder to do it every month.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. It's a labor of love. So I can choose from an existing list, or I can create a new one. And I'm going to show you my list here as well. So I ran a report in Evergreen for the 2025, the most popular books in 2025. And so I have that built out into subcategories, specifically most popular media. So these were the most popular movies that circulated in 2025 across the system. And so when I'm looking at my list, I always have the option to edit it. I can add more titles to it. Just like when we were in our search results, I can also create a spotlight from a list. But if I were to add this to a browse category, it's the same exact workflow, where I would give it a name, and then I could choose a parent for it to live under or not. And then I would just click display on the home page. The difference between the list version and the search version is the list has to be manually updated. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're creating your browse categories or your collection spotlights, is how much maintenance should this need? The more specific you are, a list might make the most sense. And the thing is, a list, it can be updated. You can always add titles or delete titles from it, but you have to be the one updating it, whereas the search option is going to update based on the filters applied to it. Okay, and Jonathan says we do this to highlight our staff picks. Yeah, it's browse categories. This is my favorite feature of Aspen because it allows your library to showcase its personality. You can get really specific with it, whether it's staff picks or, upcoming programs, or you can really get creative with it. And I just love that that's a feature.
Did you show me, and I just was trying to mirror, so I missed it, what it looks like, the difference between the spotlight or the browse category?
I just showed you the difference between saving it. So when you save it, you have the option to save it as a spotlight or as a browse category. When you create a spotlight, and I know that we're going to go to the Largemont website. Also, fun fact, your library logos are linked to your library website. So patrons can just click on that logo too to get there. if you scroll down, these are collection spotlights. So we're in the Largemont Library website, and
Oh.
they have created spotlights for specific collections. So they have usual suspects. So I'm assuming this is like a mystery, new fiction, new mysteries, new nonfiction. There is no limit to the amount. It's just about the available real estate you have on your website to embed this.
Okay, I got it. Thank
So,
you.
but to also keep in mind though, if you do want this, you also either need to be the person or know who is maintaining your library's website in
Yeah.
order to do that. So just remember that. Okay. Okay, so those are browse categories. That's creating browse categories. But what if we want to manage our browse categories? So I'm going to, where is, there we go. I'm going to go back to our Aspen admin menu, and I'm going to my local catalog enrichment menu. You don't have access to it, but it makes me laugh is the bad words list. So this is how we censor things. So patrons can't search for bad words in the catalog. And I just makes me giggle. You have two links for managing your browse categories in Aspen. So there's browse category groups, and then there's just browse categories. And it's very easy to get them mixed up with each other. Your browse category groups is how you maintain the layout of your browse categories. So which do I want to be first when patrons first open up? What order do I want my subcategories to be in? So I can, I'm going to go down to Westchester Library System. And when I click into my libraries page and I scroll down, I can drag my browse categories to rearrange them. So I have this set up a specific way. So if I wanted to rearrange any of them, all I have to do is drag and then save. I can also go into edit specific ones. So I'm going to go, I just created the Black History Month browse category. So I'm not going to use this as my example. I'm going to use my 2025 most popular, and I'm going to go into edit, and I'm going to show you why I'm using this one versus the one we just created. Because if I scroll down, this is going to show me, oh, there's actually, oh, that's because it's, let me go back. Okay, boop, boop. Okay, let's go to my fiction. All right. So my fiction has subcategories with it. If I wanted to see or rearrange them, I can rearrange the subcategories as well. And what I wanted to show you with what I just clicked on is I can see how many times people are clicking on them or dismissing them. And so that's a good indication to me of like, oh, okay, this one's popular, or this one actually hasn't been really doing that well. Maybe I want to get rid of this one. So for example, let's take a look at, what do we have? I used to have an Amish romance subcategory on here, but I was asked to remove that. So let's take a look at how our classics are doing. Okay, so our classics have been shown over 10,000 times. Over 900 titles were clicked, and it was only dismissed 16 times. So I'm going to say, like, this is a pretty good, these are pretty cool numbers. I'm going to leave this one up. I can also add date ranges to them too. So meaning if I wanted to, I could have it preset. So come, if I wanted to have an April Fool's browse category, I could have the start date being April 1st and then have it expire on May 1st as well. Okay. Now your browse categories link, think of this as like the database of the browse categories available in your catalog. And so you can click into them each, and this will also give you those numbers. You can also add descriptions to browse categories if you want. but you'd have to click like into them to get that description to see. Um, you can also choose which library these are shared with. So remember, I have different permissions than you, so I can see every browse category that's been created throughout the system, whereas you guys are only going to have access to the ones that you've created yourself or that's been shared with you. And so if you wanted to share your browse categories that you create, this share with drop down, you could do selected library or everyone. So everyone, it's going to be system wide, but then the selected library, you do have to choose from your drop down there. So it's like, if I only want this to be shared with Largemont, I'm going to choose Largemont. Also, one of the main differences too is to keep in mind is even though you get the same how many times this has been shown, clicked, or dismissed, you can set those date ranges. You can't rearrange them in the browse categories link. You can only rearrange them in the browse category groups. Are there questions about, I see some stuff in the chat. Okay, sorry, just curious, but are there search terms on the blocked bad words list? The bad words list, I can show you what the bad words list contains to kind of give you an idea. I'm not going to read any of this out loud, but it's usually like it's pornographic terms, you know? So it's not search terms, but it's just, you know, to kind of keep things proper. Okay. Okay, I'm going to be so curious. The clicks on browse categories, not the bad words. Yes, okay. All right. So I also want to talk about creating, we're at 307. So I want to just talk about system messages and placards. So we are going to create that in our local catalog enrichment. So our placards, as I mentioned, these pop up in our search results. So these can be shared with all of the libraries, or they can be shared specifically with your library. So if you were to look at the placards for your library, you'll see placards already existing in there, and they'll have your library code in front of them, and it will say what it's for. And that's going to tell you that, oh, these were created by WLS and shared with everyone. So some of them that you're going to see those are going to be the system-wide shared library resources that we want to promote to patrons. So for example, Mango Languages, Medici, tutor.com, Learning Express, all of those things are placards. So let's see. I'm going to show you what the Mango Languages looks like as a placard. When you create a placard, you do have to give it a title. And this is just so you can see and pick it out of the menu. And then you can also give this a date range too. So placards can be seasonal or specific to a time period. You can also make your placards dismissible. Whenever you make anything dismissible in Aspen, if a patron were to dismiss it, Aspen is going to remember that that patron dismissed it and it will never show it to them again. So placards, I would say, is fine to make them dismissible, but other things you may want to think twice about making it, considering like with what you're communicating. In the body, this is where you're going to include information about that placard. So for Mango Languages, learn a new language with your library card and join the growing number of bilinguals in the Bedford Hills community. Click the image to log in. And so you can upload an image. You can add alt text, which I do recommend adding alt text to any images that you do upload to Aspen. And then if you're linking to an outside web page, this is where you're going to include that URL. As I scroll down, this is where we're going to add our trigger words. So the trigger words is where we're getting into the shoes or the brains of the patron to kind of figure out what would they be searching for this to pop up in their search results. So for our for Mango Languages, we have bilingual. We have duolingual. We have English, ESL, French, German, Italian, all the different languages, language learning, world language. You can also create, or not create, you can click on exact match. So only if they were to specifically search for that will this pop up. There's no limit to the amount of trigger words that you add. And then as you, when you're finished adding your trigger words, I do recommend for the languages to turn on both English and Espanol because patrons have the option to set the catalog to display in Spanish. And then you're going to want to choose your library and your location. So typically, you're only going to see your library and location listed here. Unless you have branches, then those are going to be included here as well. These will not get displayed in the search results unless you turn your library and location on. Now, what does that look like when a patron searches? This is what shows up for me in my search results. And because I'm searching in the Westchester Library System catalog, this does not have the location specific language that has been created for each like individual library. But if I were to click on it, it would take me to, sign up for this service. I've seen other libraries promote their like programs or story hours, and they've included the registration links. And so I will say when it comes to creating placards, depending on what you're trying to promote, this does require collaboration across the departments at your library. Because if you're trying to promote, story hour, you need to talk to the children's librarian to figure out, well, like, what stories are you reading? Like, what are the keywords that you think I should add? Because none of us are mind readers. So we do, and it makes the job easier when somebody can just say, these are the keywords or the trigger words I want you to add to it. Now, when you're creating placards, there is an example of wanting to keep a placard dismissible is if you are going to be using the same trigger word for multiple placards. So if you find that you're using the same trigger word for multiple placards that you're creating, and you're not sure which one is actually going to get displayed, the most recent created one is what is going to get displayed. So if you have the word book as a trigger word in multiple placards, the last one you created is what will get displayed first. And if a patron were to dismiss that, then the second placard you created is going to show up. There's also a keyword, I believe it's a percentage sign to make placards show up no matter what the search term is, depending on what you're trying to communicate. And I'll verify that in the follow-up email I send. Questions about placards? Okay. All right. And then system messages. So system messages are the banners that show up at the top of your screen. And so as you can see, this is how we're communicating, asking patrons to be patient with the book delays from the Baker and Taylor shutdown. Jonathan mentioned that this is how he communicates library closures. I've seen libraries promote programs using the system messages. To create a system message, you're going to click add new, and it's very similar to placards where you're going to give it a name and you're going to add the message to it. So we're going to say happy Friday. And I'm just going to use it the same thing as my title. Make the font as big as you want. You can choose the color you want. You can add little emojis or symbols to it. You can also have your system messages display in Lita. Do keep in mind though, the sizing of phone screens. So, something like this would probably take up half the screen. So I don't have this turned on for Lita. I have a different phrasing. So you don't have to create a separate system message for that. You can just put your, you can create it in this little box specifically for Lita. There is a 280 character limit, so do keep that in mind. We will be moving on from Lita, so I don't know how relevant this will be for people watching the recording after the fact. The show on, this is where you're going to tell Aspen where to display this. So all pages will be the default, but you can choose all account pages. So anywhere in my account, that message will display. Or you can get specific. So just checkouts, just holds, just finds, or just contact information. So in everyone's catalog is this message about the text message hold notifications. This is a system message. The message style is the color of the banner. So danger is red. Warning is yellow. Info is blue. Success is green. You can make this dismissible, and you can also give it a date range too. And so I can apply system messages to everyone's catalog. You guys can only apply them to your own. But just like placards, you have to turn on yourself for the library and location section. And so I'm going to do that for Westchester. I'm going to save my changes. And there's my banner. Happy Friday. And I do not want that to stay up there, so I'm just going to delete that. And then it's gone. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop sharing just for a moment. And I want to touch base and see where how everyone is feeling about this, because I know this is a lot of information to take in, and we're at 317 right now.
Can I just ask a quick question about something? So you mentioned that you're moving on. So Lita is the Aspen is the catalog on the mobile.
Lita is the app that
Yeah.
we currently are using. So
the WLS
yes,
mobile.
WLS
Oh,
mobile.
okay. So there's going to be a new app soon, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yeah, we're
Okay.
going to be transitioning to a different app. So that's
Gotcha.
why I say, because Bywater hosts catalog and an app version of that.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions? How are we feeling?
Looks great. It
Okay.
looks like everything I could probably find. It might take me a while, but I can use the documentation and search.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to sharing. And I want to talk a little bit about the web builder options. So I mentioned that some libraries have created pages within their website to showcase, their library closures or their hours. And I want to show you, I'm going to use Hastings as my example. Ursula at Hastings did a really nice job with this. So they've created a link for calendar and library hours. And so they have a page just for all of their closings and special hours here, because she wanted those to be more visible than just looking at the hold screen or, patrons. She didn't want patrons to just have to go to the website to see that information as well. So, and also in the WLS, our programs and services is a web page as well, and all of our help and FAQ pages. So I have these catalog help guides. If anybody wants to add these to their catalog, just ask me for the link, or you can copy and paste the link yourself, and you can create a menu link with it. These are all created in the web builder as well. So I'm just going to close out some of these extra tabs. Okay. All right. The web builder is going to be where we create those pages. So the basic pages is what I showed you with our programs and services. And the custom pages is where I had the help and FAQ page. So the reason why we have web pages, or the ability to create web pages, is there are libraries, not within Westchester, at least not that I'm aware of, but libraries that use Aspen as their discovery layer that don't have their own website. So Aspen was essentially created to kind of bridge the gap and be a one-stop shop for patrons. So it can be utilized as a catalog and a website. So a basic web page, to create one, you're going to click your Add New button. You do need to give it a title, and you need to create a URL alias. A URL alias is going to be the link for this web page that gets tacked on to the end of your catalog URL. So for me, that's opac.westchesterlibraries.org. For example, Chappaqua, that would be catalog.chappaqua.library.org / whatever URL alias you create for this web page. That's how you create the link for it. A teaser is going to be a brief description about the web page, and then the page contents. So it's very straightforward and very simple. I don't want anyone to be afraid of creating a web page, because you can always delete it or you don't have to link it. Something that's really cool about the page creations or anything that you're creating in the web builder is you can determine the audience for it. This is not required, but you can determine whether or not this is for adults, children, everyone, parents, seniors, teens, or tweens. And then you can also specify a category for it. So arts and music, ebooks, homework help, and so on. So going back to our programs and services, what did I do? There we go. I have it very simplified. So it's just links to all of the programs and services that Westchester Library System offers. Also, I want to show you the web resources. So web resources is a really cool way to showcase all of the digital resources that are available to our patrons. So in the WLS catalog, our web resources showcase all of the system-wide resources to patrons. So I created all of these little icons in Canva to keep everything uniform in size for our featured. But I have things like, all of the usual suspects. But then I have it also broken down by category because there's so much. So I have all of for reference and research, I have all of the Britannica, Consumer Lab, Open Access, all of the Gale resources, and so on. Video streaming includes Estante, Hoopla, Canopy Kids, Medici, Explain Patient Education, and so on. And when patrons click on it, it takes them to a description of the resource. And then when they open that resource, it takes them to that website. And oops, this page does not exist. I have to update that. Going back to web resources. Yes. When you click Add New, you need to include the name and the URL. So I would need the updated URL for Estante. If I wanted to open in a new tab, upload the logo or image. So the logo for this is that little, are these little graphics that I created in Canva. To have it displayed at the top, I need to turn on featured. And then this is a new feature. I can generate a placard for it, which is very cool. But I already have placards for all of those system-wide resources, but I think that's really neat. Also, anytime you see that little question mark icon, if you hover over that, that is going to give you an explanation whether or not the resource has an automatic generated placard, which can be edited in the placards page. So this will create it, and then you can go into placards and finish setting that up. The teaser is that little brief description we saw. Let me just close this out. This is the teaser we see. And then the description, oh, excuse me. This is the description. And then the teaser, close that out, is the blurb. You can determine whether, like, you can specify if this requires a library card. Can this only get used within the library? Requires being logged into access unless in the library, and then also allow access to patrons of these home libraries. Not every, and then these are the audiences and the categories, because we do have libraries that pay for their own subscriptions to certain things. So if they are showcasing it in their catalog, sometimes the login, it's looking at the barcode prefix. So it's helpful to determine that, no, these are only for my patrons. I see something in the chat. Okay, lots to absorb. We have a custom page for people to apply for a temporary library because it's more professional looking than a Google form. And it's good. Yes. So Jonathan is saying we have a custom page for people to apply for a temporary library card because it's more professional than looking at a Google form. So that is most likely created in the custom form page. So I'm going to leave here. Custom form. So, yep, apply for a temporary Eastchester Public Library card. So, Jonathan, I hope you're okay with me opening this up. Yeah. So, forms can be used in a multitude of ways. So, as we see, Eastchester is utilizing it as a temporary application form to get a library card. Other libraries are using this as, suggest a purchase or ask a reference question. So there's a lot of that you can do with the custom forms. So just like we've been seeing in the web builder, you have to give it a title and then you have to create a URL alias. So for Eastchester, you're going to see that the URL for this page, let's go to Eastchester. Okay, library homepage. I wonder where you guys have that.
We don't actually link it from here because we link it from our regular website because there's no form functionality with libguides.
Okay.
Right? So that's why but if you go down, apply for a temporary online card using this form.
Okay.
This isn't something we use too often because we want, most people come in to get a card, but this is
of course. Yes. And so this is excellent. Okay. All right. So that URL alias, so you see how it was /temp card, it's tacked on to the Eastchester URL. In the introductory text, this is information about the form. So this is where you're going to include your instructions for how you want your patrons to fill this out. So please verify here if Eastchester is your home library, and then this is how it's being displayed in that form. Your fields are your questions. So your label is what you want to get filled out. So first name, middle name, last name, email address, phone number, street, all of the information that Eastchester is asking the patron to include when they're applying for this card. And this is how it displays here. The field type is how you want this question. So we have text field for the names, but as you can see, we have daytime, phone, address. I'm going to open that up. So if you want patrons to type in the answer, if you want a drop down, let's say this isn't for an application, but maybe you want patrons to choose, like you're polling patrons what kind of programming they want, and you want them to choose from a drop down, you could do checkbox or select list. The description, they don't have it filled out here, but those question marks we've been seeing, this is the description for when a patron hovers over that. So it can say, add your first name, add your street address, and so on. For the field types that do have multiple options, so the multiple choice ones, this is where you're going to include all of those if you want that in your form. You're just going to separate them by commas. Default value, so this is going to be if you had something that maybe you wanted pre-filled out already. So patrons can type into it, but it can say, on top of having a description, it can say like enter first name. And so when patrons click on it, then they'll be able to type their name into it. And then you can also make them required, like Eastchester did here. Your email results too. So this is who's getting those email. This is who's getting the results of this form after patrons submit it. So after they fill it out and they verify they're not a robot and they click submit, this is going to Johnson's email address directly. And you can have multiple people collect these form responses. You just have to separate the email addresses with a semicolon. And then the submission result text, this is, this can say, thank you for your application, as Eastchester's saying, or for the reference questions, a reference librarian will get back to you in 1 to 2 business days. And then you're going to choose, again, your library. Also, when you go out to, actually, let me go back in there. When you're looking at the menu, you can also view the submissions for this form too. So even if your email address isn't the one collecting them, you can still see who's filling these forms out in the Aspen admin menu. So you can spy. Okay. Right. I believe that is everything that I want you to know about Aspen administration. So I'm just going to show you where some of that information is on the IT Wiki. So in the IT Wiki in the home screen, if I'd hope you know the IT Wiki by now, but I'll include the link to it in the follow-up email. And it's it.westchesterlibraries.org. The homepage of it has a link for Aspen administrator help. And so this is going to give like a brief explanation of what Aspen administrators can do. And then in the Aspen admin quick links, this is a link to the PowerPoint presentation that I sent out to you guys. This is an explanation of the Aspen dashboards. So the available dashboards, and then this is also going to be an explanation or a breakdown of what all of those things actually mean. So page views, total number of pages shown, the exact same thing, but with the logged in user. So it's going to it's going to explain that for you. This has a link to the help center. If you don't have it bookmarked, this is a quick way to get there. And then Amy, this is that menu link icon cheat sheet that I've created. So for just like kind of broad menu links that libraries might create. So sign up for a library card. These, you could just copy and paste those to propagate those icons.
Thanks.
There's also recordings to previous training. So a previous Aspen administrators overview from last February. And then using the patron catalog. So how the patrons can use the catalog. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then I just want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions, and also let you know that in the follow-up will be this recording, but also if you have questions going forward or need help with anything, please always feel free to ask. How are we feeling? Are we feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we feeling excited?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good.
I had a question. Is the format of search results, like when a patron that does just a search from the patron end, is that something that we can edit, like how search results appear?
So no, because that is a global setting. And just to clarify what you mean by that, do you mean the sort by?
No, I mean the actual like description and title and like information that says where on shelf. It's like two of the most frequent like questions or confusions I have from patrons with the catalog are where it says like on shelf and it means on shelf somewhere and not necessarily at. They think it means at the branch.
Yeah.
here,
Oh, okay.
or
Okay.
if it's like it's an ebook and they think it's a book. I know it says both of those things, but
Unfortunately, that is not something we can configure. If that would no, I'm gonna say no because the where is it, the available copies and the location, so the 0 of 1, just for this example here, there is a copy owned by Hastings, but 0 of that 1 copy is available. So unfortunately, we have to trust patrons to be able to
just click.
understand what that means.
Yeah.
Same thing with the book format. Again, we have to trust that patrons are looking at what that is saying. Now, granted, sometimes Aspen reindexes every single night. Sometimes there are issues with that reindexing, and sometimes I'm sure you guys have seen it where like only the ebook option is available, and that is very confusing for patrons. When you see that, do let me or Lindsay Stratton know. Call the help desk, send in a ticket so we can force another reindex. But unfortunately, we have to trust that patrons can pay attention and figure it out on their own.
I also have a question about
Sure.
the like you made the Black History list,
Yes.
and if you put that in for like the month of February, would it then would it save it for next year and put it in, or would you have to change the dates again?
You would have to change the dates. And that's a great question, Marianne. Local catalog enrichment. Okay. Okay, so I went to browse category groups and I clicked into the Black History Month browse category. So when I put in my start date or my end date, it's for, this is so annoying. It's for the year that we're in.
Okay.
So, and there's also a timestamp too. So I can also, unfortunately, this is still in military time. So I can have something expire at midnight on that specific date. And then once it does expire, like it's still going to hang out in my browse categories. It just won't be visible. So if I want to display it again next year, I just have to go back in here
Back and
and adjust
change
it.
the date.
Or, come March 1st, I could
Oh,
have the
just change it
start
to that.
date be 2026. So February, I mean 2027, and just
Right.
update that way. I could do it that way, set it and forget it.
Okay. And then my other question on the lists, because I was browsing around, and so on the most popular children's nonfiction, it brings up Harlequin romance books.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So can you just delete like 1 or 2 books, or
Yeah. Yes.
it's called Ultimate Showdown, which is like, but it's a Harlequin romance.
Yeah.
It was on the most popular nonfiction.
Most popular nonfiction. Okay. Yeah. So that I just have to go into, and how that probably happened is because I ran reports for these, and then I just put the
Nonfiction. Fiction. Yeah, this one. This one. Yeah, so all these who would win in the
yeah,
number of ones.
yeah, and so that's probably how that got in
I think it
there.
was called Ultimate. Yeah, right
There
there.
you are. You are. Let's get rid of you. That's so funny. Okay.
Allison, did that show up there because it was miscatalogued?
No, I mean, I don't think it was miscatalogued because when you create lists, if you've created lists, you know that you can add multiple titles by just copying
Mhm.
and pasting the titles in, and that's how I believe that's how I did it for that specific list. So sometimes, like even when I was doing the movies, like there are I had to do ISBNs instead of the titles because as you can see here, Saturday Night, that's supposed to be the movie about SNL. That's a book. And like so sometimes Aspen is looking at the title and not, and it's just pulling like the most obvious choice for those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it
then
looks yes.
my other question was back to the Harlequin romance. So when you click on that, then it gave you like 25 other Harlequin romance books. Is
Uh-huh.
that like what it's supposed to do? Like if I had clicked on a different nonfiction one, would it then give you all in that series?
Yeah, so let's do the Minecraft because we're basically seeing all of those who would win ones. So is this a series? Yeah, this
Yeah.
is a series. So yeah, so when you click on something that is part of a series, the Syndetics Unbound is what's pulling in the series information, and it will tell you like which one is what, like number what in the series. It'll have the summary, recommends. So that is
Okay.
by design. All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think I have kept you for long enough. I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon, and I will I will get this recording to you once it finishes uploading. So hopefully by the end of the day, it will by the end of the day. But if any questions come to you, if you have any requests, if you need help with anything, if you want to become an Aspen administrator and you need a login, send me a help desk ticket. But as far as like the Aspen admin login, I prefer if your supervisor just or your director sent that in. That way, it's just better when logins are created that those come from directors or the anyone on the authorized list from your library. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm going to stop recording.